What is your favorite Pixar film? Sure, there are a lot of great ones and it's hard to pick, but The Incredibles and Ratatouille are undeniably one of the most beloved. Their perfect balance of humor and heart make them stand among the greatest animated movies of all time. In fact, both of these films were directed by the same guy. This guy. Let's pause for a bit. Why am I talking about two animated films when I should actually be talking about a fast paced spy action thriller? It seems uncanny at first, but the guy who directed those two Pixar films also made Ghost Protocol. Something totally different, even in terms of the visual medium. But somehow, Brad Bird delivered not just one of the best Mission Impossible films, but also a total masterclass on how to craft action cinema. The opening prison breakout is but a sample of how good Ghost Protocol is. The suspense seeps in right from the start as we see Benji remotely open cells in a Moscow prison. The prisoners seem confused a little, but slowly begin to see this as an opportunity to escape. Meanwhile, Agent Carter is running towards a location underground, supposedly to rescue someone. These sequences are interspliced with the prisoner flicking a rock back and forth in his prison cell. The scene keeps building up till Benji plays a song on the speakers necessary to time the escape. And this is when we get a glimpse of the prisoner, Ethan Hunt. Now that's how you introduce a character. But the escape isn't quite as simple as it seems. Ethan is bringing another prisoner along for the ride, and it's getting more and more impossible for them to navigate to the extraction point amidst all of the chaos. Chaos is indeed the word, since a lot is happening, but Brad Bird never lets you lose track of what's happening and when it is happening. There is precision and clarity at every step of the sequence, and this is the genius of Brad Bird's direction. A definitive sense of purpose throughout the story. Ethan and Bogdan reach the extraction point, and Ethan, as he runs away, says to Agent Carter what is one of my favorite lines from the entire franchise.
Light the fuse.
What is the most important ingredient of a Mission Impossible film? Sure, the action of course, but more so the team dynamic. Ghost Protocol nails that. Instantly you have a team that's made up of really interesting characters. Agent Carter recounts her previous mission and how she loses Agent Hanaway, someone she deeply cared for. This creates a compelling reason for her to be on the team. On the other hand, you of course have Benji, who hasn't been on the field much and he gets excited just working with Ethan. And of course, Ethan himself. 4 movies in and he's still an engaging lead character. An antithesis to someone like James Bond, he's a much more colder, calculating and smart hero who is driven by his mission and yet completely caring of his team. There is a mysterious aura that surrounds Ethan in Ghost Protocol, mostly coming from his questionable past. The first sequence which plays out the team dynamic to perfection is the Kremlin infiltration, which might be the most creative action set piece in the entire series. Its setup and execution is absolutely flawless, and the fact that a major portion of the hallway scene takes place in complete silence adds so much tension to the scene. It's a brilliant display of pure visual storytelling. The stakes in Ghost Protocol are always high. The basic mission itself has world-ending consequences, but add to that the fact that the IMF itself has been dissolved, so our heroes don't have anyone to rely upon. As Ethan says,
4 of us, and the contents of this car are all that remain of the IMF.
Another interesting aspect of this is that the gadgets almost never seem to work. The phone message doesn't self-destruct, the retinal scanner isn't perfect, the gloves don't work, and even the mask machine malfunctions. All of this makes the mission feel more, you guessed it, impossible, and justifies the title Mission Impossible. Okay, now let's talk about the Ghost Protocol sequence. Of course, I'm talking about the Burj Khalifa sequence. I don't just mean Tom Cruise's insane stunt of actually climbing the building, but the entire mission itself. The plan of setting up meetings with Wistrom and Moreau, giving the hotel a facelift, Agent Carter fighting against Moreau, and all of it culminating in this brilliant sandstorm chase. All of it is just perfect and undoubtedly one of the most ambitious set pieces ever conceived in the history of cinema. You can yet again notice Brad Bird's ability to orchestrate all of these various subplots seamlessly, never letting you lose track of what's happening and when. But I do have to mention, at the end of the sequence, we get to know that Wistrom was in fact Cobalt with a mask reveal, which is so pointless and adds nothing to the story. And speaking of Cobalt, he is quite possibly the worst villain in the entire franchise. He isn't threatening, has no presence at all, and just a boring template villain who wants to blow up the world. I like to think the actual villain of Ghost Protocol is time itself. There isn't time to carry forward the objective almost all the way through. It's a constant obstacle to the team and a much more interesting antagonist than the actual villain himself. One of my favorite scenes in the film is the part where Brandt explains his connection to Ethan. It's basically exposition, but it's so well done and adds depth to not just Ethan but also Brandt. And Brandt is a fantastic character, and I really wish he played a bigger role in the future installments. Sure, he has a presence in Rogue Nation, but I really wish he was actively involved in the missions. But either ways, another strong character in the team. I want to mention something that people don't talk a lot when they talk about Ghost Protocol. It's the humor. My god, this film is hilarious. Every moment with Benji is comedic gold, especially this one.
Blue is glue. And when it's red, dead.
His line delivery is spot on, and the banter between Brandt and Benji is just too funny. Other than a great sense of constructing a story, Brad Bird also seems to have an intuition of where to provide comedic relief, such that the seriousness of the film is never derailed by the humor. I simply love the entire sequence in Mumbai, especially the part where Brandt has to jump. It's one of the most underrated parts of the film, and it always puts me on the edge of my seat. Anil Kapoor has a fantastic cameo, and he definitely shines in the very limited time he's on screen. Although all of this feels a little less superior than the insane high of the Burj Khalifa sequence, it's never not exciting. Once the actual mission is done, we also have an epilogue, which is a wonderful bookend that gives Ethan a lot more depth, and the scene between Brand and Ethan is just beautiful. I also really love that they have a perfect setup for Rogue Nation.
Now an emerging terror organization known as the Syndicate has control of our entire drone fleet.
And this final shot of Ethan disappearing into the smoke is just so cool. So that's what I think about Ghost Protocol. One of the best mission movies with great camera work, stunning action set pieces, and an awesome central team. With all of that said, I'm going to give Ghost Protocol a 4.75 out of 5. A few weeks ago, I took up a mission to review all Mission Impossible films before Dead Reckoning Part 1 hits theaters, and it's going great so far. Check out all of those reviews in the playlist above and stay tuned for Mission Impossible Rogue Nation review next week. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Keep enjoying movies and I'll see you again.